My husband called me dramatic about my severe nut allergy, so I let him discover the truth the hard way. I've never considered myself particularly petty, but after years of my husband Mark dismissing my severe nut allergy as just being dramatic, I finally reached my breaking point last weekend. For context, I've had a diagnosed anaphylactic allergy to tree nuts since childhood. Even trace amounts can trigger a serious reaction: swollen throat, hives, difficulty breathing, the works. I always carry an EpiPen, read every label, and inform servers at restaurants about my condition. It's not a lifestyle choice or preference, it's literally life or death for me. Mark and I have been married for 4 years. When we first met, he seemed understanding about my allergy. He'd check ingredients before cooking for me and was cautious about cross-contamination. But over time, his attitude shifted. He began making comments like "a little bit won't kill you" or "you're being paranoid" whenever I was careful about food. He'd roll his eyes when I questioned servers about ingredients or preparation methods. Once, he even suggested I was using my allergy for attention. The dismissive attitude extended to his family. At our first Christmas together, his mother served pecan pie, and when I politely declined, Mark announced to everyone that I was just being fussy about nuts. His sister once deliberately brought almond cookies to our house, saying I needed to build up tolerance. Despite my attempts to educate them about anaphylaxis, they treated my medical condition as an inconvenience or exaggeration. Last year, things escalated when Mark actually tried to prove I was overreacting by ordering a dessert with hazelnuts at a restaurant, claiming he'd ordered it nut-free. I recognized the telltale signs immediately: the itchy throat and swelling lips. I had to use my EpiPen and spend the night in the emergency room. Even then, Mark suggested I had psyched myself into a reaction because I thought there were nuts in the dessert. After that incident, I made him read medical literature about food allergies and anaphylaxis. He apologized profusely, promised to take my condition seriously, and for a while, things improved. But gradually, the eye-rolling and dismissive comments returned. The final straw came last weekend. Mark's parents were visiting, and we decided to have brunch at our place. I prepared most of the food myself to ensure it was safe. Mark volunteered to make the coffee, something he rarely does. I thought nothing of it until I took my first sip. The bitter, nutty flavor was unmistakable. Almond milk. I immediately spat it out and rinsed my mouth, but my lips were already tingling. Mark looked confused when I frantically grabbed my EpiPen and antihistamines. "What's wrong?" he asked. I managed to explain between labored breaths that he'd used almond milk in my coffee. His response? "I thought you were just allergic to actual nuts, not milk. Besides, it's processed, so the proteins are probably broken down." This was after 4 years of marriage and countless explanations about my allergy. I didn't end up needing the EpiPen that time. Thankfully, the exposure was minimal and the antihistamines worked quickly. But something inside me snapped. Mark's parents watched uncomfortably as I recovered, with his mother suggesting I was making a scene for their visit. Instead of arguing, I simply nodded and excused myself to our bedroom. I spent the next hour researching allergy simulation kits used for medical training. These kits don't cause actual allergic reactions but simulate the physical sensations of anaphylaxis: the throat tightness, the panic, the struggle to breathe. They're used to train medical professionals to understand what patients experience. I ordered one immediately, along with educational materials about severe food allergies. When the package arrived 3 days later, I waited for an evening when Mark was home alone. I placed the materials on the kitchen table with a note: "Experience it yourself." Mark was puzzled but curious. The kit included a special restrictive collar that gradually tightens around the neck, simulating the sensation of throat swelling, along with a breathing restrictor that makes each breath require significant effort. The instructions recommended trying it for no more than 2 minutes to understand the panic and discomfort of anaphylaxis. I watched as Mark followed the instructions, adjusting the collar and inserting the breathing restrictor. At first, he seemed amused, even rolling his eyes slightly. But after about 30 seconds, his expression changed. His eyes widened as he struggled to draw adequate breath. After 1 minute, he was clearly panicking, grabbing at the collar. I calmly reminded him this was only a simulation, not even close to the real thing, which comes with additional symptoms like hives, vomiting, and plummeting blood pressure. When he removed the devices after just 90 seconds, he was shaking. He sat in silence for several minutes, processing what he'd just experienced. Then he looked at the educational materials I'd provided: medical journals documenting fatal cases of anaphylaxis, statistics about reaction times, and first-hand accounts from allergy sufferers. The simulation was a turning point. For the first time, Mark seemed to truly understand the seriousness of my condition. He apologized profusely, acknowledging that he'd been dismissive and ignorant. He admitted that he'd never really believed my allergy was life-threatening, that he'd assumed I was exaggerating like his cousin who claims to be allergic to vegetables she dislikes. But the real change came the following weekend when we visited his parents for dinner. Before we arrived, Mark called his mother to discuss menu options and ingredients. When we got there, I overheard him in the kitchen carefully checking what oils and ingredients she'd used. When his sister arrived with a bakery cake, Mark immediately asked about the ingredients and informed her it wasn't safe for me before I even had to say anything. During dinner, his mother made a comment about me being careful to a fault with food, and Mark firmly but politely corrected her. "Mom, this isn't about being careful. An allergic reaction could kill her in minutes. This isn't a preference or exaggeration, it's a medical condition we need to respect." The look of shock on his family's faces was priceless. They'd never heard him advocate for me like this before. Later that night, Mark told me he'd been thinking about all the times he'd endangered my life through carelessness or deliberate testing. He'd realized his behavior wasn't just dismissive but potentially deadly. The simulation had made him understand the terror I feel during a reaction, and that was just a small taste of the real experience. In the weeks since, Mark has become my strongest advocate. He researches restaurants before we visit, speaks to chefs directly about my allergy, and has even joined an online support group for partners of people with severe allergies. He's educated his friends and family, making sure everyone understands the seriousness of anaphylaxis. Last week, he came home with a custom medical alert bracelet for me, higher quality than my old one, and had programmed his phone with emergency protocols and my allergy information. I never wanted to resort to such a dramatic demonstration, but conventional explanations hadn't worked for years. Sometimes people need to experience something themselves, even in a limited simulation, to truly understand. For anyone dealing with loved ones who dismiss medical conditions, I'm not suggesting you take my exact approach. But I do believe in the power of education and experience. Many hospitals and advocacy groups offer allergy awareness programs that include simulation components in a safe, controlled environment. My husband now understands that my allergy isn't about being dramatic, it's about staying alive. And for the first time in our marriage, I feel truly safe and supported in managing my condition. Sometimes it takes a taste of someone else's reality to develop genuine empathy. In our case, it took a simulated anaphylactic reaction for my husband to finally believe what I'd been telling him all along. The most gratifying part? Last weekend at a restaurant, when the waiter seemed dismissive of my allergy questions, it was Mark who spoke up firmly. "My wife has a severe, life-threatening allergy to tree nuts. Cross-contamination is a serious concern. Could you please have the chef personally confirm the ingredients?" The waiter's attitude changed immediately. When I looked at Mark with surprise, he simply said, "Your life isn't something to be casual about." I get that now. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come through experience. I don't regret my approach, it may have saved my life, and it definitely saved our marriage. Now when I say I'm having an allergic reaction, there's no more skepticism or eye-rolling, just immediate, appropriate action from the person who promised to be by my side in sickness and in health. For anyone whose medical conditions are constantly dismissed by loved ones, know that you deserve to be believed and supported. Your health and safety are non-negotiable, and sometimes it takes dramatic measures to make that point clear. In my case, 2 minutes of simulated distress led to a lifetime of genuine understanding.